Hi girls, welcome to WiP Support with a special focus on personal investments. For as long as money has existed, people have had thoughts and opinions about it, and while not everyone will agree about the best ways to earn, save and spend money, many wise people have weighed in with their thoughts on money over the years. If you don't make putting money away for a future a priority, you'll never get around doing it. And when you need it, it won't be there. Starting and sticking to a savings plan is something you will never regret. So today we feature Jayashree Ramchandran, who has been an avid investor herself for herself and her family and friends for over a decade now, and also a founder of Alfama Research and Advisory. Welcome, Jayashree.
Hi, Mandeep. It is such a privilege to be talking on this forum today. Thank you so much for having me here.
Let me just quickly tell your background. Jayashree is an MBA in finance by profession, having worked in the field of investments and capital markets in Mumbai and Bermuda. This is something we're going to talk more about at some point in time. Besides having worked in an NGO and as a teacher for underprivileged kids during a sabbatical she took when she had her little girl. Welcome, Jayashree, once again. I wanted to first and foremost ask you, how did you make a foray in this field?
Mandeep, this started probably when I took up my first internship while I was doing my MBA. And at this time, I started with a complete back end with a brokerage house. And DMATs were just coming into, the picture at that time. And I was totally enamored by the stock markets and different products. And what I could remember from my earlier days was only fixed deposits when my dad used to make me go to the bank every time. So seeing so many other kind of products really took me by surprise. So I also specialized and moved ahead with my education in the same field. And during the pandemic is when I really felt the need and the urgency for people to be at least financially aware of, other than just managing your household expenses, to be financially aware as to where you are making your investments, where you stand with respect to your net worth, and personal instances of my friends who got duped in this market in the fall and in the rally. Things like this just made me more inclined towards pursuing this and helping out people with whatever knowledge I have gathered in my journey so far.
And are you a first generation of investor? Because I totally am. My mother didn't know anything. She totally depended on my dad, although she ran the house well. But she doesn't know anything on investments. She's 86-year-old, touchwood. And still she doesn't know. She knows how to use a card though. And very openly, she keeps telling people, I know my PIN, and she'll declare her PIN everywhere she goes. And my grandmother apparently used to buy gold. And my great-grandmother, I'm told that she used to hide money under her pillow and pillow covers. So tell me about yourself. Are you a first-generation investor?
I am also completely a first-generation investor, and I can totally resonate with the things and instances that you're telling me. My mom used to have 6 to 7 purses, and she used to have different money in the different purses. And she would typically tell, don't take money from here, take it from here. And for us, they were all the same money, but we wouldn't understand her allocation. But somewhere that was her allocation, which in today's terms, we do it across asset classes. And if you see, like she used to run the household, that was her budget. And she would be given an X amount and, you got to do it. I think that was very typical of all women in that generation. And FDs were the only investments I remember, because my dad used to send me to Canara Bank probably every 2 or 3 months to go and ensure that everything is in check.
NSCs, National Savings Certificate.
Yes. So in that sense, I would say yes, probably I am the first generation investor in my family, and it's helped me a lot, helped my family a lot, and I hope to spread it on.
Are there any studies which talk about, because I've been seeing women getting savvier, obviously in my generation, a lot of men, and because I came from a banking industry, a lot of them there as well. But women are getting savvier regarding their investments. Are there any studies which talk about what percentage of women in India or globally are who take their own investments in their hand?
A lot of things have actually changed in the last, I would say, 1.5 decade. And there was a recent study that was conducted by DSP, and this was published in the Economic Times, saying that almost 33% of women actually take up their own investment decisions, which is a very good number. It's a very positive number. And of these 30%, which is also a significant number, did it on their own terms without much support from either their parents or their husbands. Many of them were also, in fact, encouraged by their husbands to start getting into investments and understanding, which is again a very positive sign. And they played, I think, in many cases, husbands have played a bigger role, probably 40%. In nudging and encouraging their wives to take up investment decisions compared to the fathers.
Sure.
And yeah, so we've also seen, I think there was also another study which talked about how globally things have changed for women as well. Though we feel that, in the global arena, women are more independent, but it is actually not the case. In fact, they have more challenges than what we face. We have our support system in place here. We have our parents, and probably the separations and divorce rates are not very high. Though single parenting is, you can see a lot today, but it's not as prominent as how it is in the West. So during the pandemic is when there were studies carried out on how women and men were reacting and how things were taking a backstage for women, especially. That was also because they were single parents, or they were going through patchy divorces, or unfortunately they lost their loved ones. A lot of things like this. And you could see that in the Western counterparts, they were affected much more than the Indian scenario. So this also, I would think, created a nudge, or rather an urgency for women to understand why it is even important for you to know what is happening in the household. It's not just me getting my credit on the first of the month, and the credit just vanishes between your EMIs and your house expenses, or we go and indulge a little. So it's important, but at the same time, I think it's also vital to know where it is going, where it is getting streamlined.
So there is some amount of at least the social security overseas which covers the women, and if they're not working or otherwise, they get that. But you're completely right at different scenarios in different places. Jayashree, I really want to know that, considering you were away once from India and then when you took a sabbatical, you've been away from kind of a corporate kind of a career. So how difficult was it to keep in touch with the regulatory changes? I mean, the way the KYC norms and things like that, while it must have been away, it became so much more tighter, and so many regulatory issues keep coming up and changing, and the kind of a range of financial products and schemes which have come. How did you manage to keep in touch with all of these?
Luckily for me, Mandeep, I started managing my own portfolio since I got my first stipend. So it was around 23, 24. And a friend of mine had actually told me that unless you don't put your money, you're never going to learn.
That's a good lesson.
Investing others' money is easier, but putting your money and getting into the skin of the game is what will make the difference. And I think I really learned from that, and I started investing. As I said, mutual funds had just begun around that time. So I used to allocate a little to stocks and a little to funds. And this started growing, and it really helped me. Even while I was overseas, I would invest and learn from their markets. So it was a learning process. We all gain some, we lose some. It's not that it's been a smooth journey. I've had a lot of my bumps on the way, but it's a good learning process. At the end of it, I think we as women, another big trait in us is we have a lot of patience with our investments, and we don't take to losses easily. So we are ready to wait it out. And that actually helps you a lot in the investing world. So And by doing this, again, over the last decade, there have been a lot of regulatory changes. So because I was also taking care of my investments, my father's investments, or family investments, so it forced you to keep in touch with the changes in the regulations that were ongoing in the market.
नहीं तो family पीछे आने वाली थी तुम्हारे. Broadly, I want you to tell our members and that what are the investment avenues available to someone who's beginning their journey into this. Because I mean, I want to share with our members that I have requested Jayashree that if every month she could write a little blog on one piece of it, because it's very huge. We need every part to kind of explain to you guys. And this little interview is not long enough for doing that. So why don't you say broadly, what are the investment avenues available to a person?
Sure, Mandeep. See, the basic investment avenues, which probably many of us would be aware of, would be the bank fixed deposits, or you talk about government products. They go into the category of fixed income. Now, what we see in the share markets, what we see in mutual funds, they go into the category of equity and fixed income. Other than this, we also have commodities. So when we talk about commodities, we talk about gold, we talk about silver, and all the bullion that comes under it. Besides that, a new class of investment option is coming up these days, which is called as alternative investments. Okay. Alternative investments, anything that doesn't fall into this category of an equity or a fixed income or commodities, they get into the alternate class. We must be hearing a lot about cryptos. We hear a lot about NFTs, and you say it zoomed from 1,000 to 2,000%. All these are very, very risky asset classes, and they are not for the, I would say, for the novice investors, because there's a lot of risk and return involved. Plus, regulations are not up to the date on these commodities, on these investments. And the last but not the least is real estate. Real estate is something that all of us are familiar with. We want to buy a house, we want to buy land, we want to have a vacation home. So all these fall under the category of real estate. In real estate, you also have a new branch that has been launched in mutual funds. It's called as real estate investment trusts. So I would probably talk a little more on this, or write about it when I describe each investment class. It'll be easier for all of us to understand.
Yeah, that would be very nice. I want you to give me one little idea for somebody who's really starting out totally afresh about what should they see in a good financial advisor, and what is the first step that somebody should be making if they're getting into the world of investing.
First and foremost, I think it is extremely important to understand what's happening in the household. Say you're completely zero, starting at scratch. It could be a homemaker, or it could even be one of us who are working. So it is extremely important to first familiarize with what's happening around the household, other than the basics that you are already taking care of. So once you get that, ask more questions and try to find out where the investments are being made. And when you get a hold of that, then you try to understand, okay, are they giving you returns? Try to understand what kind of instruments it is being invested in. So these are the first things that I would think is important for anyone to understand. And another very important thing for, I don't know whether I should classify it on a gender. Our mantra should always be that income minus the savings is our expenditure, not the other way around. So that helps us to channelize, and it helps us on a rainy day. So I would think that is another very critical aspect.
One of the things which has been very important for me has been, when you develop a trust with an RM, because you share whatever your future, how you want to see expenses, whether it is for your parents, whether it's for children's education, or whatever your things are, and you bear it all with your financial advisor. So there's a level of trust And that is very, very important. So when you have advisory firms who reach out, and that's the first thing that I'm asked myself, because you do need kind of a word of mouth kind of a thing about someone who's been through the person and saying this is what I like about them, etc. Because I only know banks because I've been part of specifically one bank, and which I trust. So I would like to ask you that how do usually people reach out? I know you've been around friends and family for a long time, but is it that the way that it continues?
What happens when you are getting into financial advisory? The most important thing that you would require is trust and transparency. As you said, bear it all. That's a very, very important aspect on both the sides, from the advisor and from the client. So it helps. Now, as a standpoint from the advisor, what I would think, it's very critical for you to understand whether he just comes and he gives you products that you should invest in, or does he actually take a holistic view of where you come from, what are your current finances, and how do you plan, what is the requirement 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line. Though all of us cannot make a huge plan, and many a time it doesn't work the way we have planned. Life is not very fair in many ways. What we only can do is try and ensure to protect ourselves as much as we can. So one very common way of approach for investment advisors is through word of mouth, because we are specifically not allowed to advertise on any forums. It's a regulation. So, or what you would read in papers, you would hear them giving comments. If you open ET Money or ET Wealth, you would see individuals asking questions, and you would see answers that are coming out from certified financial planners or advisors. So they are people or they are advisors whom you can approach. If that doesn't work, I would still think it is by word of mouth, or by people whom you know, or on forums like this where one friend helps another friend. So those are ways and means by which you can approach a financial advisor.
There is this in TV commercials or otherwise, there is always this disclaimer which says, please read the document carefully. Very, very fast it goes in before investing. Now, people who have been in from financial services background are a little aware of the market risks. Specifically, it comes from mutual fund schemes and things like that. So I know that the objective of the disclaimer is on a statutory thing, but can you just explain to our members as to, for these advertisements, what are these market risks they're talking about?
Yeah, in fact, just on Jan 6th or 7th, I read about it where Mr. Piyush Goyal, our Union Minister, had come out with a statement saying that these advertisements have to go in the same pace as what is being portrayed. You cannot just rush through the wordings. That's very important, because the disclaimer is for the mutual fund. He makes it safe for himself. What is important, what we miss out, what we don't understand is whether it's a equity or a debt or any mutual fund, there is a risk component involved. People say, "Aap debt mein invest karo, bahut safe hai." No, it is not safe. You have a risk element. We have seen bank deposits going from 10% to 4% today. So that is your fixed income, that is your debt. So people, a lot of mis-selling happens in the place, and they also many times, because everyone runs on their deadlines, and so what happens is the information that is given, what, आपको last year 80% मिला, this year आपको at least 40% मिलेगा. No, it doesn't work that way. So these are disclaimers that are put out. And more specifically, mutual funds, there are so many schemes in mutual funds that are being launched today. So it is very confusing for a layman to understand all the schemes and the different asset classes. So that's why either if you are in the field and you understand, that is good. Or if you are a new investor, rather than getting it on DIY platforms, it is better to go through a known person, an advisor, who would be able to tell you exactly, ठीक है, आप multi-asset में डाल रहे हो, so these are the kind of things that you can look at. If you're looking at a concentrated fund, you would be looking at these things. So this is not something that I would think a common person would know. If they know, it's great. But if they don't, it is always good to approach. So these are the disclaimers.
Well, the interest rate changes and how the market behaves, and suddenly we didn't know that how it impacts all of these things. And I think it's very, very important for people to know that. I have a friend who said that his father trusts his RM more than he trusts him. He's a banker. And he said the RM comes home and says, "Ab yahan kariye sign, yahan kariye, yahan kariye."
Yeah.
So I said, it can't be like that. He says, no, he's 85 years old and he doesn't trust me. He just trusts his RM. But one of the good thing is that this RM used to at least tell him that, sir, aapka portfolio used to be 50 lakhs and now it is 66. So this guy said, as long as money is growing, I trust my guy.
Correct.
So this fellow was very scared that, and he called me because, it was my erstwhile bank, and he says, can you influence? I said, the guy is good. He's actually telling your dad how his portfolio is growing. So trust him. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, what's your message to the WiP members as a woman and as a financial advisor?
First and foremost, it's great to be a woman. And investing is not as daunting as it is made out to be. It is very simple. It doesn't matter whether or not we are from the field or we are not. We just need to be a little more curious and nosy when it comes to these things. And it is never late to start investing. Take hold of your investments. It can be a very small amount, 500 or 1,000 to begin with, but just start it. So you're at least in the skin, in the game, and you know where it is going. You will take your own decisions, right or wrong. Keep a threshold that this is what I lose and I'm okay with losing this much, but at least learn. That would be the first step, I would say, which is very important for women. And there is a very, there's a Chinese adage that goes that the best time to plant a tree was probably 20 years ago. And the second best time is today. It's now.
Lovely, lovely. Jayashree, that's a very apt saying. I was going to tell you a Warren Buffett thing. It says, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving.
Yeah.
I think, wise people have said a lot about these things, and I really hope that you continue to share your knowledge on wealth management side with all our members who are interested to know. We look forward to that, and welcome to WiP. Lovely chatting with you this morning.
Thank you very much, Mandeep. Great meeting you as well.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.